I think the clickbait culture has just found its way. Every walk of life that we're seeing right now, right? We know emotions. If we plan emotions, we'll get more people.
I was really thinking about like, what is good exercise selection? You know, I think we all know like there's exercises that are generally good for most people.
I want good coaches to know that a full vertical press is probably no for a lot of people. A lot more than they're willing to accept, actually. So as a coach, use the exercise and then have them pause through ranges of motion so they can feel that.
Frank Tardy, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
What are you, yeah, man, tell me, well, don't tell me, I know you. Tell the people, who are you? What do you do? What's your role in fitness? And then we'll talk about the PT stuff after. So what's your role in fitness?
So currently I'm a cash pay physical therapist. I'm located in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I'm always been kind of a hybrid with coach and injury prevention, so to speak, is kind of what it probably started as. Using a lot of keywords, right? Like injury prevention, corrective exercise specialist, all these things that we thought a coach was. I kind of didn't know what to explore. And so I found my way into physical therapy school, and I became a doctor of physical therapy, and I always didn't know how to kind of discern the difference between the two. Once I started learning, I just thought I was being a good coach. So in Arizona, I'm a hybrid coach and physical therapist. I do manual therapies. I do dry needling. I can look like an acupuncturist or a chiropractor on some days. Other days, I just look like a personal trainer or coach. But my business kind of blends them both together. And so I have this healthy balance of doing both, and it's super successful. I have a partner, Jeff Barron. Our place is called Evolution Elite Performance Therapy. And it's super fun. It's a vibe, and we love what we do, and we try and do the best at it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I wanted to chat with you because you're in a unique position. I've known you for a long time, but you're in a unique position where you're blending two ideas together, vocations together, right? Like you're and it's, I say unique, but it's becoming less unique.
Sure.
Now I'm just running across so many PTs, so many coaches, so many chiros, so many X, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, I'm doing this and I want to take care of my people, so I'm also coaching.
Yep.
Kind of walk us through how you got to that place where you're like what came first? I want to be a PT or I want to be a fitness coach? And then after you answer that, what brought you to wanting to do that thing?
Yeah, it was actually fitness coaching first. CrossFit, obviously found my way into just being in a community, and I loved it. But what started to happen was injuries started rising up in the gyms, and as being one of the coaches, people come to me with that, and I had to solve these problems for them. And at the time, Kelly Starrett was the mentor, right? Like he was the guy you're following and watching to be like, how do we fix these CrossFitters? And so in the beginning,
so it was walking around with foam rollers.
It was foam rollers and bands, and you had all these gadgets, and so I just became that. I left the classes and I became a personal, like one-on-one specialist coach in the gym. I got a little too caught up in the intricacies of like you're squatting wrong, and I correct one person, I turn around to correct the next one, and everyone fall apart again.
Yeah.
So I kind of got fed up with that, and I just wanted to fix people and make them do it right so they can get really the benefits of the workout and the prescriptions and stuff. And, low key, I feel like I created functional bodybuilding because at that time I'm like, whoa, you guys have never even done a bicep curl. And here we are doing pull-ups and all these different things. And it's like, I would pull them off to the side, teach them some skills, but really we were doing like isolated movements. They just didn't have the contractions over a lifetime to even be here and earn it. And so I kind of started that way. But ironically, it was a chiropractor who was in the gym, and I started going into like, am I going to do PT school? Am I going to become a PTA? And the chiro asked me, he's like, well, how long is PTA school? And I said, 2 years. He asked, how long is PT school? And I said, 3 years. He's like, why don't you just go to school an extra year and become a doctor? And I was like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. And so then I pursued the doctorate route, and I got into Midwestern here in Arizona, and it's kind of been all she wrote. And then, then I found OPEX through another PT, Will Trujillo.
Oh, yeah.
And Gabby Stewart, one of the athletes, like she kind of led me towards OPEX too. But Will was like, just tack it onto the bill, bro.
Yeah.
He's like, it's everything you thought PT school was going to have, and it didn't.
How'd you meet Will?
He dropped in at our CrossFit gym here. It was Hammer.
Okay.
It was an offshoot of Urban Warfit.
Okay.
Back in the day. And so, yeah, he dropped in and, I chatted with him a couple times and he kind of pushed me towards that way.
Yeah.
And once OPEX hit, that changed everything for me. So that
Awesome.
was kind of the start of the journey.
What's your, I want to ask you one more question, then we'll
Yeah.
kind of get into it. What would you say is your niche? You know what I'm saying? Like everyone has like a corner in which they play. Do you have one of those?
I wish I had like this sport that like I was like amazing at and that's what I did, but it ended up just being fitness. So my niche is really the general fitness athlete, the people who really like are concerned with health and fitness, but continue to go down the wrong routes. And if they happen to fall on my table because of injury, I kind of take that upon myself to be like, hey, I have your answer. I know exactly what you want, and I can kind of take that fitness path for you. That's kind of my niche. I really do. I'm kind of breaking into golf and tennis and rotational sport athletes. One, because I enjoy them. Two, because I think I can make a big impact there. Having a clinical mindset, but also having coaching as my background, I found a lot of joy in that because rotational stuff can really beat up the body.
Yeah.
And so good programming for that's super fun. And people feel good when they're done with it. And so I've been really enjoying that.
What did people do? What did rotational sport athletes do before? Because I feel like this is really becoming like a mainstream thing, especially here where we are, where you get a lot of trainers and coaches, PTs as well, that are hyper focusing on that demographic. But like just conversation there.
Yeah.
Like what do they do prior to like this being a big thing?
I've thought about that before too, and I'm like, the answer is nothing. The answer is probably the bare minimum, and that's okay, but I think people also want to be fit and want to be healthy. They look at people like Rory McIlroy, who he can lift some good weight. Tiger's put up some good weight in his prime, so it's like, oh, wait, there's this thing where you couldn't lift weights because it would impair your game. And I think we've seen that to not be so true. I think if you lift poorly and wrongly and overdo some things, yes, it will impair you. But I just think it's an opportunity for them to be healthy and express themselves in health and fitness while maintaining their game.
Yep.
It will also improve their game if you're getting coached well enough, but is it a necessity? Probably not. But if you want to be healthy and fit and still swing and rotate, I think it's a good thing for these athletes to kind of break themselves into for sure.
Just to the coach that's watching, that's like, bro, like, I feel like I don't know enough to work with those athletes, to help those athletes. Like, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit here, but give me just a couple. I'm not going to put a number behind it, but give me a couple principles that any coach should think about when they're working with a rotational sport athlete, whether it's high level or just like, hey, I just do this and I'm a hobbyist, but I want to be good at it.
Sure. Well, I would first off say make sure things rotate on the body. Get your assessment dialed in for that stuff. Like, get them in a quadruped position and have them do some thoracic rotation. Make an assessment out of that. Get them on the ground. Have them either, if you're privy to a little more hands-on touch, like check their hip. If you're not to that, then maybe find like FRC, functional range conditioning, and use a lens like that to see, okay, is their hip rotating? Is their shoulder rotating? Like, you have to find out if things are rotating, and if they're not, get them to rotate. And that would be, do your own due diligence and figure out, what does it mean to get a hip to rotate? What does it mean to get a shoulder or a spine to rotate? And then, that's a great start because that opens the doors up to a whole new world of stuff, right? In the transverse plane. And just knowing that, a principle is that lumbar spines don't rotate. They're not designed to really rotate. The rotation is very minimal. So when you get a lot of these people with low back pain, you got clients complaining of tightness. Well, check the rotation of the hips and upper back. And always just go back to rotation. If we're talking about twisting, check the twisting on the human. Oftentimes we're checking lunges, straight leg raises, toe touch. Everything's very sagittal plane. We probably barely get into frontal plane stuff, most coaches.
Are you saying that a coach should assess, understand rotation, or not design, like, let's call it, for lack of a better term, prehab exercises? Or are you like, just like, no, dude, like, throw that into your actual program design? Like, which route do you prefer?
Both. In the actual program design, if it's an upper body day, the movement prep is going to be combination movements, right? So you're getting the hip involved with the thoracic spine, whether it's a pigeon pose and a reach through, right? I'm going to add some sort of rotation in that movement prep really quick, just get them and then kind of continue on. And then on other days where it's like maybe geared towards, they have 15 minutes, it's not really a workout, then I'll add some more just rotational things, FRC, cars, anything that seems paramount that I found in their assessment that they need to work on, but isn't so daunting that it's a workout necessarily.
So sorry, I keep diving deep on this. I want to get to like the okay, what does A look like? You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I'm lacking rotation in my thoracic spine.
Sure.
Found that in assessment.
Yep.
You're going to give me some thoracic spine focused rotational work in my movement prep work on Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
right,
for example. At what point are you going to stop giving me that, or is that something that's in my program forever?
Oh, it depends on the phase, right? In more intense phases, if we're going to do like an intensity block, that stuff's gone, right? There's definitely more an accumulation, hypertrophy stuff, just because there's more volume to be built there. I like it as a lot of my clients will say, like, I don't really feel like working out today, but every time I do the movement prep, by the time I'm done, I'm like, all right, I'll work out. You know what I mean? So it is a little bit of like, kind of like the old saying, like eating begets eating. Yeah. Right. Once you kind of start eating, then if you're not hungry, all of a sudden you get a little more. That's kind of what I like about the movement prep, especially for the older individuals who, they've been under the barbell for long periods of time. And, little do they know that like not being under that feels good. Yeah. Rotating and opening up feels good. And if I just give them little bits on A, they're more enticed to finish out the workout.
Yeah.
Versus just walking in.
Yeah, dude. And I want you to educate me here. With a lot of people that I work with, Frank, and this has been for years and years and years, like I've been moving away from like the, and now I'm not talking about a rotational sport person. So I have to say that. So general population person, like you find dysfunction. And I've taken the route for many years where it's just like, let's just move through really good ranges of motion. Like let's do all patterns. Let's use that exercise to find those end ranges for that day. Let's allow load to increase those end ranges. Like, why should I maybe not, why, like challenge that? Why is that maybe not a great idea to actually improve movement quality specifically in people where it's like, I'm like trying to kill all these birds with a stone of like motor control, right? So like challenge that a little bit. Like, why should I add movement stuff?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything worth challenging in the sense that you shouldn't do it, because I think those better be principles that most coaches are still using. But when you start to explore these other patterns that we're talking about with rotation, it helps your linear patterns, right? It helps your frontal plane patterns. If your thoracic rib cage can actually start to rotate, have upward rotation and extension, and if the thoracic rib cage can rotate left and right and disassociate from each other, you best believe when you get into a shoulder press and overhead press, like that scapula is going to move a little bit better, right? Yeah. And so now you're truly going to get into that optimized feeling. But if it doesn't actually push and pull each other to open up that space, then you are going to always kind of fight yourself. And I think that's a huge proponent of it, is like, you think you're getting to maybe the best position, but like it only takes a little bit more to be in a better position. It doesn't always have to be in this perfect position. Yeah. And I think the intention and the quest to get there is more important than the destination. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I like that, man. I like that. And that brings, actually, I wanted to ask one question before I went to point number one. You said that you wouldn't add correctives in an intensification phase. Just explain that. Why not?
Yeah, because I'm hoping at that point, why would I be doing something so intense if they can't even do it, if I have to correct for it? Yeah. like my accumulation phases and my skill phases should have been all the correction needed. And to kind of already get into that, like, I think just good coaching is corrective exercise. If you're having to force people to learn such a position, they're not probably ready for it. And so it definitely shouldn't be an intensification. Yeah. Right. So that can go to the wayside for a little bit, maybe touches on it on a recovery day or an aerobic day, as like a cool down or just some movement stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about going intense, then you have checked all your boxes off to earn this intensification phase. Now, only certain things might be in there. Right.
Yeah. So I get you. You're more so saying like, you're not saying someone is lacking rotation in the T-spine, so they don't touch intensification across anything. You're just saying where they might need that rotation in the T-spine, or that might help, or you don't have to correct for that in that. You're just leaving that stuff out of that intensification phase with that person.
Yeah, just so they can focus on the CNS stuff, the more quality reps, right? Hopefully all the T-spine stuff got them ready for a good front squat position or a front rack position. Hopefully it got them ready for a good overhead squat position. Not that I have anyone do it, but just using it as an example, it's like, you know, if you're going to get intense with an overhead squat, well, then you better have checked the boxes off with some good overhead carries and stabilization stuff and those accumulation phases and prep work. And now it's like, now you can load that up and we don't have to worry about like, do we have to correct for this? Because they shouldn't be missing. They should be dialed in for that stuff, you know?
Yeah. On the corrective piece, so I just wrote a point down prior to this, Frank. And what I wrote was corrective culture is built on fear. But I'll just leave it at that. Like, what do you think about that statement?
I mean, I think the clickbait culture has just found its way. I think that's in every walk of life that we're seeing right now, right? It's just how do we get them? We know emotions, right? If we play on emotions, we'll get more people. More, you know, if it's played on just proof, no one really cares as much. So it's very clickbaity and it's very like knees over toes guy, right? Nothing wrong with getting your knees over your toes, especially like this comes into correctives again, intentional.
Yeah.
If you're intentionally putting your knees over your toes and you have the purpose driven behind it, love it. But if you're always putting your knees over your toes with every movement pattern and you're just blind to the fact that you're like bashing your knees up, you have poor motor control, poor stability, now we got a bad thing, right? But on the flip side, if you continue to just do knees over toes, even though it's intentional, you probably do have to back off of that at some point, right? But he's fixed some people, he's hurt some people. Everyone has kind of done that with a program, right? And it's not a one size fits all. So fear mongering is a way for them to get in. And then I have to battle that on the table.
Yeah.
By the time someone gets to me, I have to battle all these different narratives. Well, what a knees over toes guy says this, Liver King says this guy says this.
Knees over toe guy. Sorry that Frank just compared you to the Liver King.
Yeah, right. But you know, it's like there's all these personalities out there telling you what to do, and they use fear as a way. But it's like, well, did anyone assess you? Did anyone like literally get to know who your body is and what it is? And anthropometrics is a big thing I think people overlook all the time and don't understand how much that plays into it.
Yeah.
And for the coach, anthropometrics just means that we're taking a look at limb lengths, torso lengths, seeing like, hey, is their squat a more low bar squat, high bar squat based on anatomy and things you cannot change.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a big play. It's like, yeah, knees over toes is good for this one, but not for this one, based on anatomy, based on where they are in their fitness spectrum and journey and stuff. So everything's good. It's the biggest gray area you're going to be in is going to be in the health and fitness world, right? And so if anyone has the answer, they're probably really good at marketing.
Yeah.
I would probably say.
Yeah, the reality is the answer is so dang simple.
Yeah.
The answer usually isn't overly complex.
It's Occam's razor. I mean,
yeah.
Right? Like that's this industry. It's like people want to make it sound so complicated, and you know, I try and just make it as simplistic and realistic to the client as possible based on the history they've told me, the movement screen I have in front of me, where they think they are, where they think they can go, and that path there. You know, I'm really coaching them through that stuff. And, you know, it's definitely hard with Instagram and social media portraying all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Fear avoidance is a big thing.
Yeah, I think, and kind of where that statement came from for me is you just see so many people that are just like, I can't do this because I was told that I shouldn't do this for XYZ reason. But instead I should do this, right? And I know you play in that world, right? Like, or in that industry, not in that world per se, where it's just like, you know, there are some benefits of this concept of like, hey, I need to do some corrective exercises, but you just see a lot, man, where, you know, I worked with a gentleman a couple months ago where his entire program design was corrective exercises, and he was so afraid to do anything outside of those corrective exercises. So, you know, just had a conversation with him, and, you know, I don't know, you know, it's always like you're hearing it, you know, through his lens. I don't know what his PT told him and stuff like that, so I'm not going to bash his PT. But, you know, his perception was, you know, I need to do these corrective exercises for 6 months before I can touch a barbell. You know, through any pattern of movement, right? It's
that's so, It's sad. Rehab purgatory is real, right? And they just keep you in these things. But here's the thing about corrective exercise: it should put you in a position to learn, and it should immediately change the thing you're trying to correct. And if it doesn't immediately change it, then it's probably not worth it, or they're probably not doing it or understanding how to transfer that skill. The whole part of corrective is to transfer the skill immediately to the thing you're trying to correct, right? And if it doesn't do that, then you have to figure out, is this a motor control thing or a mobility thing? Like, why is it? But at that point, you should have already known. Your assessment should have told you that, right? But the big thing is saying, like, they're on the floor doing bird dogs and all these things. Well, how come my back's not better? Well, that's just a correct, like, you're supposed to take that moment in the bird dog, be so intentional in sensation and feeling and be with yourself in it that you can be like, oh, that's what my stability feels like when I lift this. Okay, how do I take that 90 degrees this way and put that into my squat?
Yeah.
Right. And feel that. Right. And so I think we get caught up with all these huge things, but like, what's the purpose of them? Like, have you transferred that to the thing they're trying to get back to?
Yeah.
Right.
Man, that's a really good principle. The principle of, like, if it's a corrective exercise and it doesn't correct you right away in the moment, then it's not good for you. It doesn't work for you. I think that's something anyone can take back, where it's like, it's not going to fix you or totally correct whatever your dysfunction might be, but you connect it right away, where it's like, when I'm doing this corrective exercise, whatever my dysfunction was isn't here anymore, or I can feel it lessening as I do this exercise. And then now it's up to them to transfer it to whatever the heck they're doing.
And you're telling them, like, hey, do you feel this? Okay, now do you feel this? Okay, I need you to feel this, not this, when I'm not here. You got to do this without me, because it's very hands-on in the beginning.
So how can, put your coach hat on now, remove all the knowledge that you have through PT school and through your experiences. How can a coach take that principle that you just laid out, if you don't feel it immediately, it's not a good corrective exercise for you. How can a coach take that principle and implement it into their practice?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a coach knows a dead bug. A coach knows a side plank clam, right? A coach knows a bear plank position, right? And the whole goal is having good communication, right? And understanding what is we'll call it the shape or archetype you're trying to fix, whether it's a squat shape, a hinge shape, right? A press shape, whatever it is. And you have to tell them what to feel, and it has to look good for you as the coach to be like, okay, we qualify this as, this is a good rep, right? You're as a coach, you're creating definitions in a common language with your client. So they know every time this is a thumbs up, that's a thumbs down, but can they correct and can they recognize when it's a thumbs down, right, on their own? And so you're kind of going to bring them to the ground and back up, to the ground and back up. And I think a big part is making sure that your communication skills are on point, and your relationship's good with that client. Because you can get them in the best positions, but to relay the information is the next, that's part of being a good coach too, is making sure that you can get that information, because whatever cue you get is different than this person, even though the problem's the same. They just can't get that verbiage to click. So you need something else. So having good tools in the tool belt about how to convey messages is huge.
Is there something around, this is how my brain works, I'm such a simpleton, Frank. Is there something around, like, you find dysfunction, you might find some dysfunction or whatever we want to call it, when someone's trying to do a particular exercise and you see that dysfunction. Let me give you a specific example. You're doing a lat pull down and someone says, man, I don't feel this in my lats, right? I feel it in my neck, right?
Sure.
For example, is there a world in which we can use the exercise itself, or not, like, and I know we're now getting down the rabbit hole of semantics, but not use a corrective exercise per se, but we use the exercise or something that just looks like the exercise as a quote unquote corrective exercise? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, like a lateralization almost?
No, like in that example, you're working with someone, again, your coach's hat's on right now. You're working with someone and you're having them do lat pull downs. And you're like, yeah, big squeeze. You want to pull that down to the sternum, so on and so forth. And they're just like, I just don't feel this in my lats at all.
Sure.
But they're moving fine. Like everything, like you're looking at them and you're like, well, it looks like you're doing the exercise properly. Why are you feeling this in your traps and into your neck? Right. So what I'm trying to get at is, can we just use the exercise itself or variations of the exercise as the quote unquote corrective without using like your classic, like, okay, well, now I need you to get into, this dead bug position, right? Or like this RNT position or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think as coaches, that is our goal, is to not deviate from it, especially if it looks good, right? If it's look good and it's checking boxes, there's obviously a sensational thing going on, like perception. They can't perceive the contraction or whatever. So tactile cueing is always huge, making sure you're tapping on the muscle, try and feel it here, making sure you're feeling it. People could go through a lot of pull-ups, make it look good, but it's all elbow flexion.
Yeah.
Right? Elbow flexion, shoulder extension. So again, that's why it's so hard for me to like take the hat off.
That's
is like
big biceps.
Yeah, right? But like long head of the tricep, what does that do? It extends your shoulder because it crosses the joint. So that's a big player in a lat pull down. So why could they not be feeling their lat? Maybe they're engaging, ironically, the long head of the triceps to get that elbow behind them, and a lot of elbow flexion.
Yeah.
So what you see as shoulder depression might actually just be glenohumeral joint extension in this angle, and you're not getting lat engagement, even though they're going through the range, right? And so they've compensated through that, and the whole thing's different. So oftentimes the test is also the corrective, right? In PT, same thing with that. Yeah, can you use that exercise? Maybe we lower the weight, we slow them down, and the coach gives a little bit of overpressure on the eccentric so they could feel that engaging from the lat. And maybe you, in combination with tempos and isometric holds throughout that range, you're having them stop maybe mid-range where it's going to feel it the most. You get them to do that before you even take them away from the exercise and be like, just jump into a corrective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like really spend some time with that person. Oftentimes it's a hand position thing. It might be a little wider than you thought, or even a little more narrower than you thought, and then they can get the engagement, right? And so understanding what's on stretch and what isn't, and what's being engaged from that. So as a coach, use the exercise, get a little more hands-on, get a little cueing, and then have them pause through ranges of motion so they can feel that.
I think every coach and probably every PT has like a party trick where they can they're like, oh, watch this, right? Whether it's like increasing range of motion by 50% or allowing someone to feel a muscle that they've never felt before. What's your I'm kind of going off. Maybe it's connecting to correctives.
No.
What's your PT party trick?
Well, it will go to the lower body, right? Yeah. Real simple. We use DNS as a framework, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, the baby exercises, right? All these different positions. We just like it because the exercises are kind of hard, and we can kind of give a framework to the client or patient. But hip internal rotation, it's a huge finding that is lost in a lot of the average person. So one awesome party trick is saying, hey, let's see if we can increase this range of motion with good stability, good stabilization. So we get them in what's called a low oblique sit, or it's a side plank clam. Okay. To get technical, low oblique sit, it's loading up that glute med, it's loading up the posterior hip capsule, all these fun things. If you can get them in the right position and they're working hard, it's either a plank or reps, they get done, their hip internal rotation, which felt like a hard block, all of a sudden it's like, whoop, wide open. And they're like, what happened? How does this happen? It's like, well, we used our muscle appropriately. It just goes to show when we contract and stabilize, right? Your body will give you back range of motion. So what looked like a range of motion deficit was a stability deficit that was robbing you of range. And so we clean up a stability deficit or bring awareness to it, and the hip's wide open, and you're like, that's weird. So foam rolling wouldn't be the answer, right? Like to bring it back is like, okay, then we're not going to foam roll this. Now, if I needled it, did the stability stuff, all this stuff, and I'm still not getting much, we're going to be all right. This is tissue. It's purely tissue. Like we have some bad stuff in here. Got to spend some time mobilizing and stretching. It's the number one thing I don't want my people to have to do if they don't need it. But if they do, it's because we've checked our boxes, and it's like, ooh, we got to spend, we'll get the range. It's not easy, but you got to mobilize.
I know I jokingly called it a party trick, but I think stuff like that is super important for coaches, obviously PTs as well, because it's an opportunity to show the person that you're working with that if they do the thing, you can actually inhibit change, progress, right? So I think that's super fascinating. We should build like a document, Frank, that just has like Frank and Carl's party tricks to like
for sure.
for immediate gratification, for buy-in. It's like, trust me, man.
I mean,
got you to do the
listen,
thing.
you'll see people that you do a forward bend, can't touch their toes. You give them the mobility ball and they rub their feet on it, and all of a sudden they bend forward and touch their toes.
Yeah.
And you're like, seriously?
Yeah.
Now, okay, the party trick is that you did it twice. You bend forward twice. Okay, the first one's stiff, the second one's better. But it's weird.
Yeah.
It's like, how did it look so hard to do? And then maybe you give your feet some stimuli and proprioception, and something kind of unlocks in a way, right? The brakes, the governor, the inhibition is kind of slightly removed. It's really weird and interesting. So that's when I'm like, okay, so if you just do good exercise, right? Like that should fix a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Like,
You know what my favorite one is, and it's to do with the forward fold. You have someone bend over, try to touch their toes, and they'll get like mid shin, a little under the knees, and you just have them put their hands underneath their toes with knee flexion, bend down, and just flex their knees, drive their glutes back.
like a bootstrap stretch, right?
Yeah,
Like
do that like 3 times.
Yeah.
And then they're eventually doing, by the 3rd or 4th rep, dude, they're literally doing a forward fold. They don't recognize it, but they're doing a forward fold. And then you're like, all right, stand up and then go back down and touch. And they're like almost hand
falling
forward.
forward,
We're like,
so easy.
how did it? But so when I've used that one, it's more so to like kind of ingrain this concept of like, you need to spend more time at end ranges. Do you see what happened being at end range for like 3 reps?
Yep.
And it's the whole concept of like, you know, someone that has bad range, quote unquote, that has nothing to do with the tissue, and the bottom of a split squat or a squat. And it's like, okay, let's go bottoms up, right? Let's get you down there. Let's pick something up. Let's stand up. Let's do that a couple times. Let's prime it. And then they're squatting or lunging and they're like, bro, I have full range. Because sometimes it's the brain that's blocking that range.
Yep.
It's not actually tissue blocking the range. So when the brain understands that it can actually get into that range, and you do that from the bottom up principle, it's so fascinating how people are just able to hit that and then just replicate it across an entire set.
And it's just open. It's just wide. And I think, you know, again, so we're going to go to clinical for a second, is that one of the major things that, you know, Jeff and I came in and talked about the slump test, right? The slump test being a neurodynamic test, checking on if basically the meninges, right, are super sensitive. And if they are,
Don't talk about my meninges, right?
And that's just a fancy word for all the stuff in the spinal cord, right? It was a meningitis test. That's what it was created as, and we found it in orthopedics, right? And we found it in sports medicine to have some clinical efficacy in understanding of like why these things are happening. But essentially, you just did a bilateral, high-tensioned nerve glide, right? You did a closed chain slump test in slump nerve mobilization. Yeah, you play with the brain.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that brain saw end range and was like, oh, we're unlocking some stuff. Haven't been here in a while. Kind of had to like floss us into it, right?
Yeah.
Kind of had to guide us. And now we're here. I'm going to let you go. Right? And so it's just those little things that people have to have awareness. They could be their best therapist if they recognize these patterns.
Yeah.
Like a good forward bend, you know, that's a good systems check.
Yeah.
Wake up today, bend forward, can't touch it, do a couple bootstraps or whatever, do a couple slumps. Check it again. Oh, we're readiness. If it's not improving, maybe you do have to foam roll. Maybe you do need a treatment. You know, some of these things, like, I hate to say it, but like sometimes you do need a treatment to get it back. You know, I've done enough stability stuff and manual mobilizations, and it didn't do anything. I put the needles and stim in there, and like everything's open. And like, wow, you know, we would have beat our heads for a long time. So it's kind of diagnostic to the treatment stuff, which is pretty cool. So it'll tell me if I need to do correctives or not. In a way.
Yeah, fascinating.
You know?
All right. Next point I want to talk about is strength and how strength plays a role. And I'll put your PT hat back on. How does strength play a role in your, I'll be as wide as just saying practice. How does strength and like really improving strength, not stabilization, but strength. How does that play a role in your practice?
Yeah. And we're talking about absolute strength now, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about like, not just getting stronger because we're coordinating our actions better, right? Like we're talking about good strength. You know, a lot of my people think they do it, right? This
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because I'm interested what your definition is going to be. Give me not a definition of strength. I think we're all on the same page-ish there. How is strength developed? at a very simple, like, how do we develop strength? What's happening physiologically for us to get stronger?
Yeah, well, for us to get stronger, we obviously have to build a base, right, of support in years of it, right? When we're talking about true strength. Now, a beginner has a top end strength, but that comes really fast and they can grow through it fast. But, strength is really just, can I get someone to dig deeper than they've dug before? We use it as like a point of education, right? We use it as a point of like, you think you're strength training, you think you're doing this, we're going to go do some strength training, right? And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to tell you what this should feel like and what it looks like. Let's see if our expectations are matched, right? You think you're 15 pounds of strength training when I know you can do a 30-pound press, right? And so putting them into these
But dude, I use 15s at Orange Theory.
Right.
We use 15s.
Right. So I do resistance. I do resistance training. It's like,
no offense, Orange Theory.
Yeah, no.
Well, maybe a little.
And these are the people I'm fixing mainly, right? People who love classes, right? And it's like, oh, let me teach how to navigate it.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, we are really good at putting people at their threshold immediately and then backing off.
Yeah.
I don't do these little exercises and build you up and waste all this time and reps. Like, we're going to go and I'm going to give you something kind of heavy right off the bat. And if you could do it, great. If not, we're going to back it off and find that next technical threshold. I need you to overcome something. And a lot of times when we talk about resistance, like my lens for my people now, we're talking about corrective and like, it's saying, hey, the weight is going to move you into a position that we don't like. Okay. If you don't brace for that, you're resisting not the weight, you're resisting poor positioning throughout this range. I want you to think about that, right? You're not letting the weight push you in a bad position. And so that kind of changes their thought process. Like, you feel this, that you're going to resist that. You're not resisting the weight, right? And so that helps them kind of figure out like what it means to dig deep, be in a good position, find their levers, and really feel what it means to be strong. And so it's really just experiences based on what I know they've done or what they've told me they've done, in their assessments too.
What are you trying to change? I'll point in my head. What are you trying to change, physiologically to get someone stronger? What's the, like, we have a bunch of options, right? Like, we have, volume, we have intensity, we have, muscle mass, we have, all of those things. Like, what is the thing that you're like, this is the thing that I'm trying to get to get someone stronger?
Yeah, it's really, it's going to go back to the CNS, right? And really, can I spark their light bulb as bright as possible in this session, right? And can I get them to dig deep? And I use a lot of isometrics for that, right? So they can really just dig and not move a muscle.
Give me an example of that. What do you
So we have for right now, like the other day I had a girl I'm correcting for her deadlift. Deadlift gets a little far out, right? Has a little bit more straight legs. So we have what's called an iso fit. You familiar with that?
Yep.
Yeah, right. It's a bar that doesn't move. You can kind of position at different angles. I get her in a good deadlift hinge position, and I give her the cues to, I need you to leg press this. We're not lifting it. So the cue I'm using is we're pushing, not lifting. If you think lifting, oftentimes your back's going to engage first, right? And so I need you to push. And so now she's pushing. Within 3 seconds, she's shaking, right? Because she's in the best position. She has never been there.
Sorry, I keep cutting out. What does the shaking mean?
The shaking means that she has found the best angle to drive her legs into it, right? She's not leaning back and just wedging herself in and pulling backwards. It's not pulling her forwards over it, right? She's set up in a hinge.
But why is that a good thing?
It's a good thing because it tells me that everything is activated in the system. From the ground up, I know she's pushing through the ground. The bar didn't clink. She slowly pulled the tension out. And now I know she's resisting the bar is resisting her. There's a net neutral, nothing's moving, and she is neutralized. And the slower something goes, right, the more force you could develop, right? So an isometric is the most force you're ever going to develop, but you don't move. So all of a sudden she felt all that. We went and did the deadlift. Immediately changed. She felt what it meant to like push the legs through the ground, right? That was my corrective, fixed her deadlift.
Okay, so a coach that is equipment poor, how can they replicate that principle across a couple different patterns?
Get a heavy bar that doesn't move,
Okay.
right? You get a bar that they don't move. You can put it on a plate or a block so it's at proper hinge height. Like if they don't have the real ability to get all the way down to the ground and do this, stack it up a few inches,
Yeah.
right? Make sure that they're in this position where they're driving their legs to the ground. Give them that, and then have another bar over there,
Yeah.
right? And if not, just take the bar, give them a few sets. Say, hey, now we're gonna start our deadlift.
Yeah.
Let's transfer that skill that we just did. That shaking, all that feeling, that should be what it feels like for a brief second to overcome the inertia of this barbell. If you just click it and go, your back, your butt's gonna raise and your shoulder. You know what I mean? That's what we're trying to correct. So an isometric is a great thing. The CNS is going right. You're firing it up. You're connecting dots. Like when you do it right, it's the hardest thing.
Or like pin deads and
Pin deads, yep, all of them, right? Overcoming isometric is another word for them, right? Where you're pulling into something and it doesn't move. Any way that you can push into something and have it not move at different angles, it's a great way to correct a lot of problems in clients.
When are you doing that within the session? Let's say, well, I won't even lead you. When are you doing that within the session? Is it before set number 1? Maybe you're doing 5 sets. It's after set number 2. Like,
no,
what's on the real bar?
I started it basically for that day. She's dealing with low back pain, but even if she wasn't, my assessment would have told me, oh, she doesn't push well with her legs, right? And she has kind of not a good development in her low back. We're going to do a Sorensen hold.
Yep.
Right. I do a lot of 45 degrees. I like it better, to be honest. I get more success with a 45 degree hyper. But we did an isometric there, and then we did an isometric on the deadlift.
Yeah.
We did that for 2 or 3 sets, probably about 3 sets, so she can really tune it in and find where that deadlift is. By the 3rd one, I was like, oh, you're locked in. Let's go grab the barbell.
And then
we walked out. Then we started set 1.
Okay.
It was a little too light, put a little heavier weight on, and then all of a sudden she's like, I feel it.
Love that.
Right? And I took the picture before and after, her one angle and this angle, and it's like, cool. Can you do this without me? Please try. Come back next week. Let's see how we go.
Awesome.
But the corrective was all about 10 seconds, 3 10-second holds.
Yep.
And I fixed it. The first session, I was verbally trying to correct her. No success.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, oh, next time I need to change this because she did not vibe with the verbal correction. She needed proprioceptive feedback.
Yeah.
Put her in a position to learn. She learned it. She's coachable. Went out there, did a deadlift. It was awesome. She was super excited. Can I do this without you? I think so.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
Awesome.
So that's how fast a corrective should in theory do it.
Yeah.
With pain not kind of being, in the coach's world, no pain. It should just be fixing things.
Yeah.
That's how fast, in my mind, it should do it.
Yeah. I keep veering you. Like I'm talking about something. I'm like, exit. So back to the original question, the role that absolute strength plays in your world. You kind of walked us through how you use it and how you try to get people there quickly, to get people to understand what strength training really feels like. Like outside of that. And then again, your PT hat's on right now, not your coaching hat. What are you telling them to go and do? Are you saying like, go and replicate this feeling that I gave you here at, your gym or your house or whatever the case is? Like, how do you implement someone to get like, someone's with you for 8 weeks, right? They're like, hey, I'm signing up for, I don't know what your packages are.
Sure.
I'm with you for 8 weeks. Right. I'm not working with you as you're not coaching me, but you're my therapist. What are you telling them to do outside of therapy from a strength training perspective?
Yeah. Hopefully by, 8 weeks, we're definitely doing some cool stuff, right? Oftentimes it's going to be very like things that I call like secure exercises, right? I kind of bucket people into green, right? The green exercises, these guys are always fair game. These are like your bread and butters. You always get a good benefit. We have our yellow bucket, which are like you're kind of still sorting, throwing some into the red, being like, I think you're good at this one. I think this one can become a very good green. Maybe that's what you're doing correctives with or something like that, right? And trying to push them into the right way. I'm kind of discerning what their exercise library is. And as I'm throwing things back into the green, I'm going, okay, here are your 3 like starting strength, right? Like I got you an awesome press variation. I got you an awesome hinge variation and an awesome squat variation. I want you to work these guys as like, this is what you're doing for strength. Yeah. You go do this. I'll maybe give you some sets and reps for it and just hammer those guys as like, if you don't know what to do for strength, do that. You'll get an awesome stimulus, So
question for you. This sparked it in my head. So I was really thinking about like, what is good exercise selection? And it's just like, I think we all know, like, there's exercises that are generally good for most people, right? Like the bench and the squat and the deadlift and the overhead press. And if you can do them, pull-ups and all that stuff. But I was really thinking through, well, what are the characteristics that would equal a good exercise for a particular person? And I want to get your thoughts on this. I broke it up into 3 buckets. Okay. It was pattern purity was bucket number 1. So how close is this exercise to the purest form of this pattern?
Like,
You know what I mean? So like for the hinge pattern in this like thought experiment, it was the RDL because it works.
First thing that popped in my head is you said that RDL.
So it was the purest form of a hinge pattern. Then we have muscle engagement of the primary movers for that pattern, right? So when we start thinking about, the squat pattern, what is the prime mover from a muscle standpoint? It's the quad. So what exercise is best in quad engagement? It's going to be a variation of the front squat if someone can actually put enough load because of the anterior overload of the front squat. And then we can add a little bit extra credit and elevate the heels or whatever the case is. So it was pattern purity, muscle engagement, and then number 3 was accessibility. So can the person actually do it? I think that needs to be a part of it. What are your thoughts on that framework?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully
Say it's perfect, and we
I think accessibility would have been like the first one, right? Could they actually do it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And probably not even in a criteria because that should have just already been like, gone without saying. Yes, they can actually. That's why we're doing this thing.
To be fair, I added accessibility there because I was trying to figure out the best exercises for the general population.
Yeah. So that's and when you said accessibility, it's like I got people that have very little at home, right? And I'm doing their programming. And it's like, there's my exercise selection for strength is very limited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, man, you don't have accessibility for a lot of things. So,
but when I meant accessibility, I meant, can someone actually do it?
Yeah. Like,
do they have access to the equipment?
Sure. So
can they access that movement? So front squat, awesome in terms of muscle engagement, prime mover muscle engagement, pretty poor in terms of wide accessibility for general population.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
You know what I mean? So it's like playing, that's where the thought experiment was. It was like, I created like a Google sheet and then ranked them.
I like the purity and I like the muscle activation for sure. I do like that because, and then, from that you're defining, okay, you have purity and then you have their personal purity.
Yeah.
Right. Are they super kyphotic and never going to get full shoulder flexion? Probably, right? And so to have the expectation of pure purity, it's making sure you're identifying that they are never going to have a pure vertical, right?
Yeah.
And their pure vertical might be a landmine press.
Yeah.
Right? High incline press. It's like that's their vertical now, and you're kind of going to categorize that. So yeah, I think having the framework of like understanding what textbook purity is and what we'll love to see and understanding where their ceiling is from anatomical. Because a good coach, I want good coaches to know that a full vertical press is probably no for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot more than they're willing to accept, actually, especially with 2 arms. When I'm saying vertical press, I'm talking 2 arms for sure is going to be a problematic. 1 arm could spare you a little bit, but, making sure coaches understand, like, why wouldn't you give them a behind the neck press?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you give them a rack press? Well, because again, it goes back to the thoracic spine, right? And their scapula can't move, and there's a lot of anterior tilt. Like it's just not appropriate.
Yep.
It's not appropriate. Figure out a different way to get them to overhead press.
Yep.
And that's a pattern, right? That's the umbrella. Now under that are the exercise selections, and figure out which ones you're going to throw away and which ones you're going to give them.
I like that answer. A simple like, dude, that's perfect would have sufficed. But okay, we covered a lot of ground. With all the ground that we covered, like what are the things that stick out to you? Because again, now we talked about Frank, put on your coaching hat, put on your therapist hat. Now wear both of them and think about the most important principles that you use from both sides of the house. Like where do you have an advantage over a fitness coach that doesn't have the experiences that you have as a fitness coach?
Sure. I think your assessment is the key for everything, in understanding what to make of your assessment, right? And you can have your own assessment. You can do FMS, SFMA, you can do all these things. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter, right? Like, it's like, what do all these numbers mean if you don't even know what to do with them?
Yeah.
Right. And so having a good assessment and understanding, you know, do things move or not move? And is it because of mobility or stability? So your assessment should tell you that you guys have to get very present with those assessments and not just, you know, just do these things and be like, all right, let's go start training. It's really having a sound assessment. Do a Thomas test. You should know how to do a Thomas test as a coach, right? How tight are these hip flexors, and are they going to be impaired in walking lunges and rear foot elevated split squats? Is it going to put their back in a bad position, right? Like, these are things that a good coach, you know, in my mind, should know. And if they don't, they should find someone who's very privy to that stuff and coach them up, right? Find a good mentor, right? Because your assessment is your selling point, is what makes you really good, because hopefully then you know what to do with fixing it, right? If you don't, then you should seek out a mentor to do that. But the number one thing is, I took my clinical stuff and I took my coaching stuff. I took all these different things and go, like, what mattered to most of these people and what catches the most things? Now, if I have some complicated stuff, I really have to get into some subtleties. You know, that's kind of a problem for everybody, right? Because most people you should be able to catch with a generalized assessment with what these major problems are. So, you know, understanding a forward bend versus a straight leg raise. It's an awesome party trick if you can fix one of those. You know what I mean? And what does that mean? What's the language you have to tell your client as to why that matters and what you found matters? You know, I think that's all way more important, because you are solving the problem, you're solving the movement puzzle that these people are coming to you for, you know. And then from there, you know, find whatever it is you like, your flair, your style, but hold principles underlying it all, because they'll stand the test of time, right? And so, you know, we talked about good movement selection or exercise selection. It's surprising, man. Sometimes it is as low level as you think, and these people love it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I really had to stop giving sometimes a lunge. So, like, literally just like, it's like, we're going to do some thoracic rotation. We're going to do a couple hip thrusts or hip bridges and this and that. And like, man, I feel so good.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, wow, simple. It's so simple to make them feel good. Sometimes I'm imposing what I want them to do and what I see as their capabilities, you know? But that's not always what they want, actually.
Yeah, I think I think it's a good principle too, Frank. Like, from like an exercise perspective, because we could do a million things with everyone.
Yeah.
But it's like finding the thing that is least expensive from a recovery standpoint for that person, that still gives them something that they have to adapt to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, you know, with an end goal in mind, right? It's like, what's the goal? For a lot of these Gen Pop people, it's just like, they want to feel better, they want to move better, they want to look better, and they want to be stronger.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like, you know, what is the role that you're playing in that? And you know, those 4 specifics that they're trying to get to. And then from an exercise perspective, it's just like, dude, like, take them through some movement, give them something to adapt to, and do that over and over and over again. And even, I mean, don't strike me down for saying this, but even who cares about progression? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, give them something today that challenges them, but doesn't over challenge them, so that they can go home, have something to recover from, come back feeling a little like, whew, kind of feeling that thing from yesterday, but I'm recovered enough to still move and still do the thing. Give them something else today, and then do that forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they feel good, you know, and they really do. And I think, you know, you don't realize how simple some people need it.
Yep.
You know, and if that's not the people you're working with, fine. You know what I mean? Then you got to give some more complicated things, but really, you'd be surprised at how good people, like, I'm always like weary about putting my movement prep in some programming, because it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
But man, it gets good response.
Yeah.
Like, I feel good when I do that. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't negate that. And it's like, I'd rather, if that's what you're going to report on, kind of want to give you more of that.
Yeah.
You know, and like to your point, it's physical challenges of physical experiences is my job first, is to give them these things before I do programming.
Yeah.
So a lot of my programming, there is no progression. It's GPP for a very long time, right? And it's like, well, how well they've been doing it. Oh, okay, we can change that now and do this stuff. It's not as like, my baseball kids, a little different, right? My Gen Pop people, it's like there's not really a rhyme and reason. I just know like they're still struggling with single leg stuff. Those things take a long time, and I'm big on putting our aerobic stuff into our PT world, or into our corrective.
That's our next episode, dude.
sure.
I want to talk about aerobics, energy systems training, and how that plays a role.
Yeah, it's super fun. That's where I think people really enjoy the stuff, because here's one. People want to show you that they can work hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
dude.
it took me some time to realize that too. And it's like, I am one to hold people back because I'm like, no, you haven't checked this box. But then I'm like, but look at, like, they want to put work in.
Yeah.
Find that. And they're like, man, my PT works me, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And they love that. So, and people want to show you what they can do. And they want to be corrected.
You know who,
even if they don't have problems.
You know who found enjoyment in working hard? Your wife.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Isn't that crazy?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've done amazing with her. I mean, it's been, she loves doing aerobic stuff now.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that for her.
I remember like 7 years ago, one thing she told me, she's like, I hate aerobic work. Don't even.
I know.
She was like, give me like hip thrusts and lunges and anything that is on
She looks for more aerobic stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Which I love too, because I feel good when I'm done with my aerobics.
Yeah.
I feel broken when I'm done with my lifting.
Yeah.
But I love lifting.
Yeah.
So I'm never gonna stop it. But I'm like, oh man, gosh. When I'm done with the aerobic stuff, I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
But like, oh man, they get that runner's high.
Yeah.
And I want everyone to experience that in their own world.
Don't go too deep on the aerobics, because we're gonna hit
we'll do that for sure.
But dude, let's wrap it there. Dude, you're such a smart guy. I appreciate you coming and having the conversation, man. I kind of feel bad that you and I just don't go to Starbucks and have these conversations. We have to turn a camera on to do it. So we'll implement that. But thanks, man. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about, like, what do you have to offer people?
Yeah. So basically, like I said, in Arizona, I'm a cash pay physical therapist, but the reality is I'm taking on the health and fitness journey of the right people. Right. And so these are maybe high level executives. Maybe these are some athletes. Maybe these are just some like really just go-getters that just want some sort of guidance, really, and consultation. And so I offer, a combination of manual therapies with their training so that we're making sure everything's staying healthy. And we're located again by the air park in Scottsdale. And yeah, we just have a good time there, and it's fun. So basically, health and fitness, if that is the answer that you need, we're here to kind of help you find that answer and what that means for you to keep you going and keep you healthy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Any some people do the social media.
Oh yeah. You can find us at my Instagram will be tardi.rx, TARDI.rx. You can also find my partner Jeff BPT on Instagram as well. He runs something really cool. It's called Rehab to Performance. These are clubs inside of a lot of chiro schools that we're associated with. And so a lot of educational opportunities are going on through Rehab to Perform. We are looking to build a type of online kind of mentorship program that hopefully should be coming out, in the future as we're getting ourselves together, but will be called Evolve, right? .ed for educational purposes. And, we want to coach up coaches and other clinicians to be like us.
The immaturity in me came out when you said .ed. Yeah. I was expecting to say you. I was like, what are you guys doing? Physical therapy or yes.
All right. Well, we got we have a shockwave machine, so
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.